you give him a couple of minutes. I said 5:30, but.
I think you did like I saw maybe one of your posts, you shared it with 5 p.m. and I didn't see on the poster properly. It was just written and it was a little bit. So I arrived at 5.
Ah, no, but it says 5:30. No, the poster says 5:30.
The poster is okay.
No, it's my mistake. I did it 5 today.
So I just did a screenshot to the story that I saw, and I was doing other stuff, and then I said, okay, I will manage to be there at 5. And then I arrived, and I said, as usual.
I didn't do it in purpose, but maybe it's.
But that's why, and that's why people were here at.
I was here at 4:58.
Yeah, not all, because the students were announced for the right timing, but probably most of them finished earlier lecture, so they didn't have where to go.
The poster was okay. The poster was okay, so I think the official information was okay. I always hated people coming late.
¿Qué pasa?
Muy bien.
¿Todo bien? No.
Ready?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
excellent.
It's
Lovely.
you guys wanna? Almost.
Okay, so I make a small talk introduction about the series of lectures and whatever.
Yeah.
I call you on stage. I do this in Albanian, but then I switch to English to call you on stage. So.
Perfect.
Mirë mbrëma të gjithëve. Në fillim semestrit dytë shoh që prezenca sot është maksimale, kështu që ju uroj në radhë parë semestër të mbar. Kjo është java parë e semestrit. Dhe ne rifillojmë me ciklin e leksioneve të hapura, të mbështetura nga Universiteti Politeknik i Tiranës dhe nga Agjencia e Planifikimit të Territorit, bashkë me shoqatën e arkitektëve, të cilët kanë mundësuar praktikisht një sfilat pazakont arkitektësh ndërkombëtar këtu në sallën kryesore të Universitetit Politeknik. Në fakt janë pak ato universitete që sot kanë mundësi të mbledhin një seri emrash të arkitektëve në një periudhë kaq shkurtër. Kjo është edhe një reflektim i asaj që po ndodh sot në Shqipëri. Pra Shqipëria sot është në qendrën e zhvillimeve të arkitekturës për shkak të një agjende politike dhe një interesi të rritur drejt arkitekturës, e cila praktikisht na jep neve sot të mundësi që të jemi në kontakt me këto zhvillime. Kontakt me zhvillimet që padyshim po ndodhin në Shqipëri për arkitekturën, por në kontakt edhe me emra të arkitekturës të cilët rrallë herë kemi pasur mundësinë që t'i kemi pasur në auditoret tona. Shumica e të ftuarve tanë deri më tani kanë qenë me një natyrë dyfisht mes profesionit dhe akademisë, dhe kemi pasur leksione dhe diskutime mjaft interesante. I ftuar i radhës për sot është Michel Rojkind, i cili vjen nga Meksika, është një arkitekt padyshim mjaft i njohur, në Meksik është vërtet arkitekt i momentit. Do na tregoj sot padyshim qasjen e tij mbi arkitekturën, disa nga projektet e tij dhe do keni mundësi në fund të diskutimit padyshim të kemi dhe pyetje dhe diskutime për temat në cilat ju keni interes. Të gjitha ata që nuk kanë të mundur të jenë në sallë, padyshim mund të njoftoni shok ose kolegë që mund na ndjekin online përmes live streamit që kemi në faqen e FAUT, por edhe në faqen e Atelier Albania Shqipëria 2030, në të cilën do të transmetohet ky event, i cili mund shihet në fakt edhe pas live streamit, pra edhe një moment të dytë, do jeti aksesueshëm po përmes të njëjtave faqe. Okay, atëherë po kaloj në anglisht. Welcome officially. I made the introduction for my students that are starting this week the second semester. So you're the first star we have in this parade of architects here at the Polytechnic University. I officially welcome you in the name of the university, of the faculty, and yeah, we invite you on stage and
Perfect.
we'll enjoy your lecture.
Thank you. Welcome, welcome. Come on in. Thank you. Is the light good, or we lower a little bit? Can we lower it a little bit? So no, we have to keep it like this. Perfect. Okay. Come on in, please. Well, while everybody is sitting down, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's an honor as a Mexican, not only architect, but as a Mexican human being to be in this part of the world and to start getting to know more of the people here in Albania and the similarities that sometimes I think we have with Mexico, no? A little bit of the chaos, the ingenious and the things that we're doing. And it's beautiful to see all the different things that are happening. And I wanted to present a little bit of the work that we do in the office. And acknowledging the other and the urgency of now in building our communities. Because we always keep on talking about futures and things that are happening, but I want to really emphasize on the idea of now and the importance of now. There's this term now all over the world called the casino-fied culture, which I hate because I think that architecture more than ever is a transformation tool. And what casino-fied culture means is that the idea that the culture has become a casino and implies a superficial commodification or gamification of cultural expression, where depth and authenticity are exchanged for spectacle, profit, and instant gratification. Culture must reconnect with its roots, prioritizing meaning over entertainment, regeneration over extraction, and community over individualism. More than ever, what we knew about culture and what moved us with the arts and everything has changed so drastically that now I call it the swipe generation. No? People just swipe their phones and everything changes, but we're really ending up with a culture that I personally hate because it's not the culture of spectacle that I want. I want more humanity and I want more realness to the things that we're doing. We are living in a world with a constant flow of information, and most of the time the torrent of information overrides the truth, and there is no time to really reflect. Everybody knows like the headline, the 5-minute headline, but nobody has the in-depth information of what's going on. And so we cannot have real deep conversations because we need to catch up with the information. We talk about the world and how the world is going to disappear and we're going to end the world. But I think that really the question is fragility and resilience. The earth or us? Who is more resilient, humans or the planet? And the question challenges the prevailing narrative about the fragility of our planet. And I think it's important that at least during the pandemic, besides people that passed away, then it's a shame, of course, we never thought as humanity that we could slow down. And we slowed down, and not only nothing happened, animals and plants started to reclaim the planet, and people were surprised to see now they have animals in their backyards, and they would start seeing like different things that were happening nature-wise. And to me, it was really a beautiful experience to say, if we slow down, we kind of make things a little bit better. No, the speed is not always the right idea, but we're always thinking of new planets. No, it's insane that we're finishing this one and we're exploiting this one to the max, and we're still thinking of let's go to Mars and let's inhabit Mars and let's inhabit the moon. This was one of the most terrifying things for me during the pandemic, that as a society in the whole world, we could predict the economical crisis of a pandemic, no? But we still don't know about the mental damage and the mental health crisis, not even today. So it's insane that what is our concern? No? Humans are concerned about the money or their people. So the resilience of a society is determined not by the speed of its financial recovery, but by the depth of its commitment to the healing the fractured souls of its people. It's amazing also to see like how many countries are really worried about the mental health pandemic, and what are we doing? No? How can we contribute to a world where human presence adds value to the natural environment instead of detracting from it? I talk a lot about resiliency instead of, or reciprocity instead of just sustainability. And how do we design spaces that foster harmonious and coexistence with other, for the planet, recognizing its resiliency and the role for caring for it? The importance of our inner work before contributing to the outer work of committing to our community. This is very important because there's a lot of people now in this new times talking about healing, that we need to heal, no? And everything is about the ego, about me, what I need to do. And when we start understanding that we heal ourselves to be better with our communities, we start understanding really the purpose of working on, not only, I mean, I'll show you the work of architecture, but I think it's important that as humans we start working on the things that are important to change even the way we're doing or we're seeing architecture. We need to reinforce our commitment not only to design and functionality, but to the creation of spaces that strengthen community culture and connection with our environments. We need to stop closing our eyes or shutting our eyes. These are images of Mexico City's inequality. I don't know, has anybody here been to Mexico? 2, 3, 4 people? Well, you're invited next time. You have to come to Mexico. It's interesting because now with everything going, the craziness in the US, we had the worst reputation that was given to us by the United States, no? And now that America is collapsing and people come to Mexico, they're like, wow, this is beautiful. And I always say, it's always been beautiful. You just haven't come. But anyway, we have these disparities that are crazy. The rich neighborhoods next to the slums, and nobody does anything. We just see it like, this is what happens when cities grow. And I think it's very important to kind of understand, again, where we are and the importance of the other. And I'll keep repeating this because when we work as architects, we need to be responsible. What are we doing for the other, which is not me? So this is a little diagram of the way we work in our office in Mexico. With all this craziness of information that we're talking about, we first pay attention to something, we select that, and then we adapt it to the work that we do. And I'll show you some examples. Interesting because you guys are 2.4 million people in all Albania. Mexico City, just the city, we're 22 point something million people. So imagine just walking down the street. No, it's a crazy place, but it's amazing. Things we have in common, we're also ingenious, but we're ingenious by necessity. And I always play with this because I see creativity in every part in Mexico, and I'm starting to see also creativity in the craziness of you guys here in Albania. When I started doing architecture, this was, for instance, one of my first projects. I wanted to do this house for a ballerina dancer. This was done, I think, 2001, maybe. And I wanted it made in steel. But by the time that I was doing this in steel, there wasn't any construction company in Mexico that would do the work. So we ended up going to this place where they repair cars, and you have these crazy, amazing guys that do metal work. And I hired them to work on the house, and they did a better job than if I would have hired a contractor, because contractors wanted to work with brick, concrete, wood, but they didn't know how to work with steel, and especially bent steel, and have these edges polished, because I didn't want any lines on the house. But I love the idea that, again, there's so much creativity, and I wish we were rewarded for being creative in Mexico, but again, it's a way of living. Mexican people, we thrive with ingenious, because the necessity to move and advance, no? I talk a lot about design with purpose and the role of architecture in fostering resilient communities. I don't care if we're working on a small project, a big project. We always have the same approach. We're always asking, what can architecture do for the community that it's serving? This is a government project, and some of the questions that we were asking is we had to review the strategy, reframe the question, and then produce the best results. Because normally, as architects, you have a client that is going to give you a problem. No? He's going to give you something to solve. And normally, or most of the time, that question is not even really well formulated. No? So he could be asking the wrong question, and you're answering the wrong question to start with. So even if you do your best project, it might not be the best result. No? So I think it's important to really think what is the right questions and spend time on the narrative of understanding what needs to be done. This was the National Film Institute in Mexico City, which already existed. It had this image with a great big slab of concrete and for car parks. But when we were called to do the adaptation in Mexico for the government in 2012, the first thing we said is how do we take the cars out and we build a park so it starts looking more like a campus. So the operations were very simple, and we started like taking little elements out. We really worked on when people would come in, they would recognize the whole sites because it's a beautiful site owned by the government in a very important neighborhood in Mexico called Coyoacán. So everything is now super urbanly developed, high rises, towers, craziness. So this becomes a little breathing space, no? Like a little park in the middle of this whole chaotic part of the city, and reclaiming the site. And then, of course, we wanted to do this building that, this is the new building that has a gesture kind of leaning forward to the existing one, so we could really start creating a dialogue. We did all the interiors as well, so it went from this, like a parking garage, to this, no? So you have like this space that now people are there. The idea of the ceiling, we had a metal grid to cantilever this. It rests on the existing building, but the new theaters, if you see the space, of course, if everything was, it didn't have perforations, the light in the middle of the plaza would be darker than the sides. So because we were talking about the Film Institute, and films is the moving image, so the perforations act like diaphragms. And so the ones in the center are wider and more open, so they let more light in. So the plaza has exactly the same level of light, no, on the edges and on the center space. But again, we were more focused on, yes, we're doing the Film Institute for the government. What can it do for the community besides just having the housing of the theaters and more vaults to archive what they have? We proposed an outdoor cinema that was not part of the program. So again, we're always pushing, like, okay, they're asking for something. Can we push for more? Are we seeing something that the client maybe is not seeing? And at the beginning, the client was like, well, nobody's going to sit on the garden. No? This is Mexico. People don't sit on the garden. And I said, leave the space and let's see how they react. And they will use it. No? It's incredible because Mexico, we use every single space. It doesn't matter if it's a street, a corner. You wake up in the morning and there's a market or there's something crazy happening. But this was a great experience because not only did people enjoy the place to watch films, but they enjoyed the place just to be there. So it became a park. It became a place where people would hang out. You see this girl with her computer, or there's another guy with his guitar playing some songs for another friend there, or everyday life. So people now come and read books. They have different experiences. Now the place became a platform for other things to happen. So now they have theater, they have music, they have other things besides the films that were supposed to be the original program. But I think that as architects, if we're always thinking, how can we create architecture that also can preserve or be a white canvas for many other things to happen, no? It's been one of the most successful projects from that government. And again, this is a little bit of the images of the day-to-day. Nothing is staged. The day we opened this, we did the opening, the space was for almost 400 people, and 2,000 people showed up. So there were people even outside the gates trying to see the movie that we were showing. I also talk about from tradition to innovation and the synergy of digital design and local manufacturing. Again, for us, you must be, I don't know if surprised, tired, angry, or what's the answer to all these architects now coming to Albania to work here with you guys and to try to understand. But I think it's very important that everybody that comes, if they don't understand the history, the logistics, the hand labor, the manufacturing, and things that can be done, I think that we're going to be wrong in the solutions that we try to create here. Because I think it's understanding, yes, we can digitally design something, but who's going to manufacture it, no? Can we really raise the level of the things that we're doing? And how can we incorporate these type of values that are helping us in other countries and share the experiences? And for instance, I'm sharing this project because this is nothing glamorous at all. I mean, most architects, we want cultural projects and we want to have like the things that are really meaningful. And this is a department store. In our office, we believe that every project can be a statement to push the boundaries, to connecting with the community again. And most of the department stores in Mexico were like storage spaces, no? Like the first box. And we say, why do we have storage spaces? You need to connect to the outside and let people connect from the outside in. And we convinced them to start perforating the facades. And this is a little video that we produced for the client where we said, well, if you open up the windows and people can see what's going on inside, then maybe we can activate it with programs, no? So the client accepted and we started working on the project. These are some of the videos that we do for ourselves in the office, but to make sure that the client understands what we want. And then some of the images, once we finished the project, the competition started for the construction companies. And I remember going to the contractor who won the steel contract. I wanted to see where his office was, so I go to his factory. And we were expecting to see a laser cutting machine in the back, cutting all the hexagons. And when I got to the back, it was this guy who was cutting like 30 hexagons by hand, and he was amazing. And this is what I'm saying, that there's a certain ingenious by necessity. And he was like, no, I don't need a machine. I can do it exactly. And he really made them like exactly, and then they were like polishing all the edges. We had hexagons that were 3 meters high, and they didn't care about it. So these are the beautiful things that, of course, if you're a Swiss architect, these come already in a truck, and they arrive on site, and everything is like millimeter, like everything connects. And I love the beauty of this kind of hand labor that we still have, that I think is a beauty that we can still work with these people. Even the construction of the project was interesting because people didn't know what was going on, because they were seeing openings and this facade that you would see the workers going up and down, the staircases and welding. And at the end, this is a little bit of the result. But instead of having a closed facade that doesn't say anything, now you have a place where you have activities, and there's a restaurant, and then sometimes there's a reading room, and sometimes they have a CrossFit on the facade and doing exercise. So again, it became an example of how to do things in a different way. And if we can push, the companies to understand our responsibility, even though it's a department store, I think we're doing the right job, no? The idea of connecting to others is, again, it always comes back to the projects that we do. This, for instance, is a residential project. And in an area in Monterrey, in Mexico City, that the clients, most of the time, they wanted like a pedestal with a police guard at the base, and then the residential on top. And we said to the client, you know what, we're not going to do that. No, we're going to open up the plaza with a couple of commercial spaces at the bottom, restaurants to activate the plaza. And they were terrified at the beginning. They were like, if you leave it open, there's going to be insecurity issues, and we're scared that people might not like it. And then I said, well, I mean, if we keep on putting police guys in the front of our buildings, even our police in Mexico will not put police, because they think that the private investor is now taking care of certain areas, which I think is also very, we create this vicious cycle, no? And the other thing is that we had some setbacks on the back of the project, which make the project have terraces. And it was perfect for me, because I always think that when I was growing up in Mexico, we lived in an area where you would say hello to all your neighbors, and the house was always open. You would never lock your house. And when I started growing up, everybody started becoming very paranoid and locking everything. And now you have gated community inside a gated community, and it just gets crazy. And now if you ask somebody that he's living in his apartment, if he would tell his neighbor that he was going to go on vacation, he would tell you like immediately no. He would never tell his neighbor, because he's going to think maybe the neighbor is the one who's going to jump into his apartment, no? So this was a project that was totally extroverted. I said, well, this is for people to see each other, not to disappear in the parking garage and then appear in their apartments, but to see you walking inside. If you go to your terrace, you're seen by your neighbors. And it's become a really nice project with a very beautiful scale of the city. It's made in, the facades are made of stone, and then you have this wood on the ceilings. But the beauty again is like I can connect again, because we keep on talking about community, but we forget to say hi to the guy coming through the door, or the police guy, or the guy cleaning the street. And that's why I say like it's important to acknowledge that the community is right now, the way we interact with each other, and not in 20 years when we figure out if the city grew in a certain direction. a little bit of the day-to-day interaction again. And again, it was a relationship of the mountains, and the building relates to the local area in Monterrey. So also, again, with all of these architects that were now coming to a new country, how do we see with fresh eyes the beauty of the geography, the beauty of the people, the beauty of the things that I think we need to uplift instead of just bringing different types of projects to the city. And there's always a political act. I always say this because even though we think it's not a political act, everything we're doing has a statement and it says something about us. Design constantly shapes our environment, and every choice carries political implications. And why I'm saying this is because this is a project for a grocery store. And in Mexico, there is a disconnect between the big companies and the farmers and some social classes in Mexico. So I was taking this project as an excuse to not only, I mean, it's a shopping center, and they wanted us to do this grocery store. And we designed the grocery store, but we said, let us use the rooftop as a harvesting area where you can connect to the farmers that are a couple of miles away. So if you create a platform for the farmers, then yes, we're going to have a beautiful project that, I mean, I can talk also hours about the design, but to me the more interesting part was what was happening on top. The creation of these spaces that you would see the harvesting areas, the hydroponic the lettuce areas as well, and the opportunity for architecture to become this bridge where people can connect again, where a company that has many stores in Mexico can start lending their hands to the farmers that the government is not paying attention to. So yes, design is interesting, but design is also a very powerful tool of transformation. And if we figure out what are the good aspects of how we can connect to some social conditions that we all have fractured in our society, I think architecture is much, much better. I talk about also interdisciplinary collaborations. This is our first project in the US. And I've always been very collaborative. I'll share with you a little bit of my past, but it's an interesting story because I used to be a musician. I used to be a drummer in a band for maybe 6 years, and I was signed with Virgin Records back in the days when I was 18 years old. So I transitioned from music to architecture, which I have a 20-year-old daughter, which still sees my photographs from when I was playing drums, and she still thinks it's Photoshop because I had longer hair. And but it was interesting because at least I think that music gave me the opportunity to understand collaborations in a beautiful way, because when you're a drummer, you want to play with somebody, you know? You want to do the bass player, the guitar player. And when I came out of music to really just focus on architecture, nobody wanted to collaborate. Back in the days, every architect, they would hide their drawings because they would think that you were stealing their drawings instead of collaborating. Now your generation is super collaborative. Even, I mean, in Mexico, most offices are not even called offices of architecture, they're collectives. And the collective has a photographer and a graphic designer and an industrial designer. And it's more open to collaborations, I think, after this whole phenomenon of the open source, when everything kind of stopped being so private. But back in the days, nobody wanted to collaborate. So it took me a while to make people or my friends and colleagues understand, like, no, I want to work with you because I want to share our minds and have these beautiful conversations to design architecture that I wouldn't do on my own and you wouldn't do on your own. So it's a great opportunity. And so this is our first project in the US, which being neighbors to the United States, I was trying to do a lot of effort to do something in the US, and I always kept getting back the idea that, no, the things that you do in Mexico, you can never do here. No, the United States has very strict rules, and you can't do anything playful in the US because we're very serious. And I'm like, no, we can. So I went to see this project for the client, and the first thing that I learned about the client, once we landed, he put us on bicycles, and we went on mountain bikes to ride around the whole town. So when I came back, I said, I got it. We have to do a building that you can bike up the building. He's like, no, you're crazy. We cannot do that. And we ended up doing it. We created a building that is an office building. And the office building has all these ramps. And also interesting because this looks like a post-pandemic building. And we designed it before the pandemic. And so, I mean, all these urban ideas, of course, there's a third street that would crash into our site, and we opened it up underneath the building so we could pass to the park. And that gave us the excuse to start the ramps on the back of the building So when the building is coming up, you have the ramps in front, but they're already elevated. And this is a project in collaboration with Marlon Blackwell and Christian and Haruka, three different offices. But the beauty of having this, you have an office building that is 6 stories high, but you see bicycles passing on every floor. So normally if you're on a 6th floor, you don't expect to see a bike or somebody with their cradle and a baby or somebody in roller skates. And it changes the perspective, and it changes also the idea that you can only have commercial on the first 2 floors. This gave us also the possibility that people renting the office spaces could have a little coffee shop or have a juice place or something to invite people to really have this experience. So we also had a good friend of mine, Stefan Sagmeister, who's an amazing graphic design artist from Austria. I don't know if you know him, but he's amazing. And he was invited to do, there's bugs or critters in all the ramps, and there's bugs that are designed with glass tiles, and they're carrying little jewels that when they go up, they form this text saying, "Now is better." So the community center all the way on top of the roof is this thing that says, "Now is better," where everybody gets together. And it's a beautiful experience to see the craziness of how something, I mean, I say simple details because it feels very generous, because it feels like the extension of the street. So it has a certain generosity towards the neighborhood. And even though if the building is closed, people go and run in the morning and come down, and there's all sort of things happening within the project that make it a beautiful experience. And this is in Bentonville in Arkansas, so it's the tallest building there for now, because there wasn't any building taller. But again, we managed to design a building that could be fun, that could be done in the States, that could be approved, and it's okay. So we're happy that we ended up creating this project there. This is on hold, but I just had a couple of images that I still wanted to show. We're now trying to do a hotel for people with bikes as well. So you drive with your bicycle all the way to your roof, to your room. So you enter the ramp and you're distributed, and this is on hold now, but we hope that we will manage to have that soon start construction. Talking about the scale of projects and the power, again, of architecture and the power of your ideas, these are simple cabins, very, very small project. But the interesting thing about this project is that when the client asked me to design for him, he told me that instead of buying land, in Mexico, the government gave land to the farmers to produce whatever they wanted to produce, and the government was supposed to buy back the produce, and they now didn't buy the produce. So they gave them the land, so the farmers have the land, but they don't have an economy with the land, so they don't know what to do with their lands, most of them. So this guy said, okay, I'm going to rent land from the farmers, so they have a source of income, but I'm going to support also their community and their family. So this guy was clever enough to do this type of business with them, and I was very interested in working with him. We designed these very small cabins. They're totally wood certified in Mexico, with everything super sustainable, and an amazing production of fabrication that you could do on site and then take anywhere you want. And it's grown so much that they're called Wonder Cabins. They became like a really interesting business. Now we're designing more prototypes of cabins for this guy, but there's a very beautiful program that if the farmers maintain the business for more than 5 years, they start getting equity on the business in general, not only the renting of the land, but they start being partners, which I think, again, also the design is a tool for making all of these things possible when you're working with certain social conditions. No, these are the new cabins that we did for them as well, that they're now in the woods. And I talk about regeneration because everybody, I don't know if for all of you, but I kind of got tired of the word sustainability because everybody says they're sustainable, everybody talks about sustainable, and I say that today there's nothing to sustain. I mean, if we keep on going at the speed that we're going, it's unsustainable, 100%. So I think that we need to start changing the narrative, or getting off the bus of the corporate world saying sustainability and say we need to talk about regenerative solutions, create better paths for a better interrelationship with our planet. And these are projects that we designed a little bit some years ago for a client that he wanted some villas and a winery. And so everything, again, was not only hidden in the mountains, working with the local people there in Ensenada. This is close to the border to Tijuana and San Diego. And the idea was to have the buildings kind of disappear in the mountains and then have these areas of pool. But also what happens, like in a certain point, there was a really big jump with restaurants, that the restaurants started exposing the kitchens, no? And it was like, oh, now you can see the kitchen, and now the chef is a star, and now everything starts looking nice. But before, nobody wanted to see a kitchen. And this is a project where we said, well, what happens if we gave the same importance to the pools than to treating the water that we're going to use for everything else? So people can also start seeing the operations of a building. So you have these basins that become the pools, but you also have the places where you're treating the water, but you're actually looking at how the water is being treated. And then we had the opportunity to work in this particular project, which is in the same place. This is for the Banyan Tree, this chain of hotels. They wanted a winery. And the beautiful thing is that we started working with the son of one of the most important winemakers in Ensenada. His name is Lucas, and he's a bit of a rebel. And I like that because, of course, when we were designing this project, there were no vineyards yet, no? They were just starting to plant vineyards. And everybody that knows about wine, they know that it takes almost 10 years for a site to start producing a little bit of good wine while the earth is changing. So this guy said, I don't want to wait. I'm going to do an experimental lab. So he wanted a winery that was more a little bit like Breaking Bad, the TV show, rather than a typical winery, where he said, I'm going to mix grapes and I'm going to do this crazy thing. And people are going to hate me because this is not traditional, but I want this. So we sat down with him and we started designing something that was this circular element because the production was all circular. And we ended up doing this project that feels like a desert flower, no, coming out of the earth. We wanted it. It's made in a precast concrete, also with brick done with the earth of the site. And again, every project that we do in the office tends to look different because they could not be the same. We do not have the same conditions. Every project is a different geography, it's a different program, it's a different way of understanding what needs to be done, and again, what it can produce for people. No? So every time a client comes and sees, for instance, one of this and he says, oh, can we repeat this guy somewhere else? I'm like, no, because this is not, I don't know what you want, and I don't know what the expression of the material that we're going to use for your site is going to be. We need to sit down and brainstorm and do all these different conditions to understand what needs to be done in each of the sites. No? And again, this project is very new. I mean, there's a couple of videos that I can also share. But the winery has gained a lot of attention more than the hotel itself. And I like the idea because I tend to believe that it maybe is because the rebellious character of the young winemaker, no? Now they have art and they put pieces of art. Now it's being used for weddings and different things. My daughter also, she also makes fun of me and she says that this looks like a Star Wars, like Luke Skywalker's old villa, no? But anyway. Also rethinking the way of living. We talk about very simple things, but you guys for you as architects, I think it's important to question everything. Question everything. Start questioning your own thoughts and your own beliefs, and then question everything around you. But because as an architect, I kind of also hate when we repeat programs, no? When a client comes and he says, oh, can you do buildings for the typical Mexican family, no? And I'm like, what's the typical Mexican family? Oh, you know, man, woman with a little boy and a little girl and they have a dog. I'm like, what year are you from? No, like, do you think that's like what's happening in the world, or where are you? So rethinking this place. Can this be transformed to different things? When we're designing, more than ever, we need flexibility because things are changing so rapidly. And for a particular project like a house, in this case, we built this house for a client that already was thinking of when his kids were going to leave. And I know this happened most of the time we're in a house, the empty nesters, the kids left, and then the parents maybe rented some rooms. But this is a house that is designed for when the kids leave to co-live with other couples. So they were already thinking of, the kids are going to leave, we want different accesses for the house, and we're not going to rent it to a young student, we're going to rent it to a couple that wants to spend some time in Mexico because we want to age in a way that we're in contact with other couples, no? So the house gave us the permission, or better said, the design of the house gave us a permission to be very abstract at the entrance of the house. Everything is poured in concrete. This is black concrete. And so you enter this element that becomes the circulation of the house that then kind of creates a courtyard at the center, a patio. And you have 3 different access points. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to show them here, but one is the main entrance of the house. The other one is the entrance for the students, for the kids' rooms. And then there's another one for a studio that the wife has because she's a yoga teacher. And again, the back of the house is very abstract, very enclosed. And then the front of the house now opens up. And it opens up to the views of the forest in front. And it creates this different intention of what happens in the circulations when they're dark concrete, what happens when it opens up, and also questioning a little bit, when do we have time for introspection in our houses, no? I mean, sometimes we want to read a book, sometimes we want to, but is there really a space where you can create like a place where you can meander a little bit? So with the wife of my client who's a yoga teacher, she's like, I love the circulations in black because it gives me the time to kind of like walk a little bit inside, focus a little bit on what I'm doing. And then you come up to each room, and then there's all this glass to ceiling light that comes through the rooms. So a little bit of a contrast on a house that could be a typical house, what is not a typical house, of course. And again, this is how you see it from the entrance. We're doing a couple of projects like that. This is another villa or a big house that we're doing near Tulum for a client that wants to share a house with another couple. So there are already 2 people thinking of like, why don't we design a house for us in their main house, not a second home, but a main house where I hope the relationship ends well, but let's see. It could be a social experiment. But we wanted to have the least footprint possible, and this is a house that you have this column and then it branches all the way out to the trees. We're leaving the concrete exposed, very little materials as well, but again, understanding the place, the site, the conditions, and the relationship in the place where each is going to have their privacy, but they're going to share this beautiful area with a cenote. This is another house that we're doing now this is interesting because I always talk about the importance of where we come from and how we see the world. And I think that's one of the most incredible assets that you can bring to your architecture, because clients will look for you because the way you see things and the way you can actually understand the world, and then, of course, produce the architecture and deliver the architecture. But this is a project where we went to see the site. It's up on the hillside in Los Cabos, in another part of Mexico. And that center point that you see there, that was a rock. And we were there, and I told the clients, why don't we sit here and do a little meditation and see what we feel of the site? And I said, let's do something like 5 minutes. And we closed our eyes, and I think we ended up like meditating for half an hour or more. Time just flew. And the house just kind of intuitively started showing up, or we started feeling that it should be this radial house that had all these panoramic views. We started playing with these physical models. This is a collaboration, again, with my friend Derek Delecamp. But the house, it's poured in place with beige concrete. And again, it's this round house with the roofs. You have the structure also with these little elements that start also creating the perspective of the total view of the house. This is the house now under construction. Very complicated site because it's a little bit of a cliff, but it's getting there. And again, very unique for its certain conditions. You have incredible views of the ocean, and again, learning from what the local guys can do, if they can do. They were having a little bit of a harder time doing the concrete, so we were chipping the concrete. We said, it's okay, let's figure out what's your labor like, and we can figure out design-wise how to make it happen in a better way. And another house that we're doing that also has a certain condition. No? This one is in Valle de Bravo. And it looks a little bit bigger because everything underneath is just floating, no? The house wanted to be this condition that it's floating and it's opening up towards the different panoramas of the house. I'm going to show two more projects, and then I can maybe stop for some Q&A. And this becomes this is a project where sometimes architects were very obsessive about what we're doing, and we wanted to pursue triangles, and we said, okay, let's go to the triangles to the maximum detail. And so we went from the bigger scale to the smaller scale. So this is a big project that was asking for a very big high-rise, and we split it into 3 different parts of the project. And these 3 different parts, again, it's in an area where you have this volcanic stone that is this black color and red color. So we're also creating these precast elements that look from the side, and they start feeling like it's coming out of the earth. All the base of the project is a commercial area with a little technological school that's going to be there as well. And then as soon as the towers start going up, each of the towers gives something back to its center space, no? So the tower on the right has the kids area, the tower on the left has a business area, and the tower in the back has the health area that connects to the pool and everything else. So every owner that has an apartment, they have a sense of that their tower is giving something to the community. So people can walk from each of the towers to the center spaces. And again, some details of how we manage the oral technical drawings and making them lightweight so the precast on the facades don't become complicated. Everything is totally there's a system to create them in a very, very fast way, an economical way, and also to understand how to build it. So again, these are projects that we're excited that they're happening now in Mexico. And I'm going to close this with this last one so we can have a little bit of time for Q&A. But I always say that in general we talk a lot, humans, and we do very little. So I think that we have to lead by example and really focus on not only in what we do, but how we do the things that we do. No, there's a lot of people that, no, this is my architecture, and they're really bad human beings. No, you're like, what? How can you see things that way when you're really not a good person? But anyway, that's everybody to their own. But I do believe that when I see somebody that is doing their craft and it matches the way they are as humans, there's a beautiful thing to their coherency as humans in this world. And I always say that we have to have there's a purpose to things, no? You cannot just do things to do them. And this is a project that is very dear to me because they asked me to do a Philharmonica in Mexico back in the days. This was 2000, this must be like 6 years ago more or less. But in Veracruz. Veracruz is the place where I say it's dear to me because my grandparents, who were immigrants from the Second World War, my grandparents came from Russia, Poland, Hungarian. They tried to arrive in the US, but New York was already closed, so the second port of entry was Mexico, and it was Veracruz, so they came in through Veracruz. And the mayor of Veracruz called me to do the Philharmonica, and I was very moved because I used to be a musician. I'm an architect now, and my grandparents entered that part of the world, and that's why I ended up being in Mexico. And the task was, they had this beautiful orchestra that the mayor had formed because there was no sense of pride of people in that city. I mean, this is in Boca del Rio in Veracruz. And the people of Boca del Rio, they were not really proud of anything. They would ask them, like, what do you feel proud of? What is interesting for you in the city? And one started pointing out to a classical musician, and then so he started putting together these classical musicians, created an orchestra. The orchestra became very famous, and now everybody's very proud of their orchestra, and they needed to have a house, a Philharmonica. This is where Veracruz is on the map in Mexico, and then Boca del Rio. I moved it? Okay, thanks. And then, as always, and I was trying to explain the way we do our projects, it was not only about the project. First, the mayor said, like, let's do the Philharmonica in front of the houses of the guys who have the most money so they can sponsor the project and give us money, and they will feel very proud that we're doing the Philharmonica there. And we said, no, let's look for another site. Let's have some options, and then we can discuss them. Fortunately, we went to the site that was the least wanted one because it was almost a site that nobody was paying attention. There were no developers there. But I personally loved it because it's Boca del Rio, which means the mouth of the river. And that's where the river ends up on the ocean. So I said, it's perfect because if this is Boca del Rio, which means the mouth of the river, we should be exactly there. And we should be exactly where nobody's paying attention to make this project become interesting for everybody now, to pay attention to this and now start putting money on this side of the area, which is very, very abandoned in a way. No? So the project always integrated the wave breaker because I said, we're going to do this, but what happens to the outside? So I told the mayor, please include the wave breaker, let's include the plazas, let's make this be generous to everything that's happening around it. And he agreed, and again, we were very stubborn because every time we presented the project, we always presented it with the plazas, with the wave breakers, because we knew at some point maybe the budget could end or something could happen, and we can end up just having the Philharmonica without the other added values to the project. This is a little bit of the models. We always do physical models, 3D renderings, everything to get our hands on the most understanding of the site and everything. And the design basically are the wave breakers with a bigger scale, so like bigger rocks that happen on the site, because we wanted to do a transition from the wave breakers to the bigger buildings, and then expecting the city to keep on growing, because now they're changing the zoning in that area for people to invest in that area. But this is where it sits exactly on the beach, no? In this area. It's for 950 people. And this is the expression of the building. We did in poured concrete, very raw. This box is cantilevering there in a beautiful way, and it compresses the height. So people, when they enter the Foro Boca, you're at 210 maximum, so you feel the compression, and once you enter, it opens up in a triple height. The outside is granite, so instead of bringing the exterior material in, we convinced the mayor to put granite on a whole kilometer of that beach, so the same interior goes out to the street and becomes very beautiful for a public space, no? And you see there the plazas with the same material. And I'm going to show this video that has a little bit of music, and I'll just explain this really quick. And this was very, very, very meaningful to me, also because 4 months before the opening of the building, the mayor comes in and he starts saying, like, I want to see everybody right now on the main place, call all the workers. In Mexico, we always think that the politician is going to scream, is going to tell everybody that they're fired, that that we're ruining the whatever. So everybody was expecting bad news, and we all got together in the same place, and this is a little bit what happened. Every musician started appearing on stage with hard hats and with vests to play for the workers, to give a concert to every worker that was there, and to show the workers that we're all equal, that they work as musicians in the Philharmonica, and the other guys work as the carpenter or the metal worker, but we're all equal and we're all doing our jobs. So it was a beautiful way to connect to the other that we sometimes forget, no? We come as architects and we're like, oh, we're going to do these incredible buildings, no? And we don't care about the people doing the buildings. So you can imagine how these guys worked for the next months. They were so proud that somebody had recognized them and giving them a little bit of value. And I'll share with you where the video is, but the video it's very nice. But when I see publications of the building or things, I'm not surprised, and I'm not surprised because of the ego of the architect. I'm not surprised because there was very beautiful magic happening on the project. People getting together, the understanding of we were very passionate about what we were doing, all the interiors, and again, the way we kept on working for the project to be something for Mexico, not something for a specific time in a government, but something that will transcend and will be from a country to the world, and something that could say something very beautiful. So I think that, I mean, I hope that you get a chance. We also, for instance, convinced the mayor to have everything that happens on the inside is projected for free on the outside, because we know that sometimes the fisherman cannot afford a ticket for the concert. And even though if he can't afford it, he will eventually be invited if we see it. But everything that is happening goes out for free on the outside. This is the area that is going to be, now there's one tower there, no? So you're getting all these different zonings now because of this Philharmonica, that I'm glad we did it on this site. And this is like the day-to-day in Mexico. So you still see the families with their plastic chairs, like with this thing in the back, and or the kids playing on the ocean. The fishermen came back because fishermen almost didn't want to fish there anymore, because everything was, you would see diapers on the wave breaker or broken bottles of beer. And now we put lighting, so now they have light and they can also fish at night if they want. And so again, this is a project that is very important in many ways. So I just want to close saying architecture is not just about buildings, it's about the hands that build them, the people who inhabit them, and the lives that they touch, and what they can give back to the community. And our role as architects is to build environments that honor this interconnection, fostering inclusive, dynamic, and purposeful communities. Let's not forget the people that build our buildings. Virtues that unite and connect communities: empathy, trust, integrity, commitment, loyalty. And these virtues are not instant. They're not part of the swipe generation. These require time to develop. So make time for things that are really meaningful, guys. Community is now. I also talk about this really quick because I don't know, when I was growing up, people would tell me, go to nature and connect to nature, no? And like if we were disconnected, but we have to remember that we are nature, no? Why did somebody tell us that we need to go in some place to feel connected? What are we doing to feel disconnected? We should be asking. So we are here to awaken from our illusion of separateness. And may our designs be acts of recognition and respect for all members of society, opening the way to a more connected and compassionate world. Let's not wait for another pandemic to be shut down and not being able to express. And make your ideas happen, guys. Thank you very much. Okay, now I can move to this side. Do you want to do some Q&A? Yeah? Somebody wants to ask something? Or if we were in Mexico, I would tell you, okay, we can go have some tequilas now, but no, we're not. I would need to bring so many bottles of tequila next time. Yes, please.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you very much for your presentation. That was very interesting and great to see different innovative ways to solve different problems with a variety of different projects you worked on. I think for me, what I was really compelled from a lot of the things you were talking about is this idea of community and humanity and collaboration. For me, I'd like to know how much of your projects involve local communities and engagement with existing people that live in around the projects that you've developed or are working on.
Most of the time. I can't say all of the time, because at the end we design and there's competition for the contractors, for who gets to build them. But most of the builders we already know. I mean, we're working, for instance, very closely with Cemex, the cement company. And we try to make sure that what's happening with the local community. I mean, who's there? Can we use the labor work that is there instead of just hiring a company that brings their own workers? And most of the time they do, because I mean, we try to use local craft that is more specialized on what a traditional construction company can deliver to the table, no? So for this last one, for instance, in Veracruz, the woodwork or the planks were super important, but you had the ship workers in Veracruz because of the area. So the formwork that is a little recessed, like 2 centimeters push and pull of the planks, was done with companies from there. The one for the winery as well, there were some workers that are local. But I mean, I wish we could have more say on that. But again, when you do a competition for the company that's going to win the construction, they have a way of working, and we try to get our hands in there as well. Because as I was saying, when you push the client, and then you push the construction company, they start learning who they're working with. And now when we get invited to do projects, most of the time it's like, what is the project going to do for the community? No, the first thing they ask. And I'm happy, because before I would have to ask them or convince them, no? But
Thank you. I guess my question was more focused around the design of a project and how much of the design of the project do local communities have involvement in terms of co-design or engagement or development of what actually happened?
well, I mean, if we get them involved, sometimes. Most, depending again, how public the project is. No, when we were doing the National Film Institute, the government didn't want to do a park, and I said, well, there's a cemetery in a little town called Joco in Coyoacán, and we were engaged with the community because at some point I was crazy enough that I wanted to take down the wall of the cemetery and join it with the open cinema. And they were like, that you cannot do. And I'm like, well, I mean, there's many places where cemeteries are used, no? And people can go, and in Mexico, Day of the Dead, they're packed with people having festivities. So we engaged with them a lot, and most of the reasons that they were happy with the project was it was because it was going to become a park, that it wasn't going to be an asphalt paved street with cars, no? And they didn't let me open up the cemetery, but when you're sitting down on the open cinema, the cemetery is in the back, so you see the trees of the cemetery, which is beautiful. But yeah, I mean, there's more difficult projects where it's not only the community, but it's I mean, of course, the community, the local interests, but I sometimes try to sit them down with government as well to see, like, okay, you're putting certain money, what are you giving to the community? How can everybody win? Where you as a client, you're paying for this and you're taking something, but it's important for them to give. But yeah, every project has its own way of working. That's why I was saying, like, it's very difficult to produce a system that works in every project in the same way, no? And the results being the same. No?
So, as far as I know you, you have a very generous community of friends, like Mauro, Fab, and others, and you all give a lot of space to each other, and give space also in their native country to you, and you do also for them. How come that you're so well connected with very generous and let's say humble and human people? And the next question is, can you tell us more about collaborations with the ex-co-workers? Because that's something very interesting.
Thank you. Well, I mean, it's interesting because I could not talk about architecture without talking about the way we see life, no? And I think that most of the people that I connect with we're still kids. We're still hearted kids, no? Of course, I'm not a kid. But I think sometimes I'm a kid, but I'm not a kid. We're curious. We have this curiosity of kids. I mean, Bjarke is a really dear friend of mine, and I think what connects us is that we're always talking about, like, if I can imagine if we were still 6 years old, picking up a rock and seeing stuff in different ways. Same with Mauro and most of my friends, Fabio, Novembre, the same, no? And maintaining that curiosity, I think it's very important, because as we're growing up, society always tells us to be very responsible, no? And we take ourselves too seriously. And now, no, you cannot be very childish or curious, or no, because you have to pay the bills and you have to do all these serious things. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. I mean, I can do the serious things, but I don't want to lose my creativity. And I think that the beauty of growing older in time is how you maintain that creativity with the wisdom that you're acquiring, because that's the beauty of it, no? Understanding that you're a certain age and now you see things in a very different way. But the reality is that with most of these friends, we rarely talk about architecture. We talk about our lives, our kids, what's exciting us, what are we reading, what movie we went to see, because that's what excites us about doing architecture, no? And yes, we celebrate our projects for sure, but it's mostly about, like, how is your kid doing now? No, I don't remember when, back in the days or whatever. But that's I think what it's interesting, because you start understanding that what you end up building, and I don't want to be the cliche of the architect talking about building, but what you end up building builds you. No, that's it. The things that you spend your life on, they have this thing that is forming you as well. And those are the most important things that I've had as an architect until today, is the friendships that I've made. I mean, I'm really proud of most of the buildings that we do and the clients that we have, of course, but there's friendships with clients, there's friendships with things that happen during the process of those buildings. Me being here right now in Albania, Adi, thanks. These are the beautiful things, and I don't take these for granted, no? There's people that come and go and they don't feel anything, no? They're like numb, and I'm like, no, I mean, it's my job to maintain that capacity to really be curious on things. And the other question that Andy was asking is that my office used to be 50 people or 60 at some point, and I downsized the office, and this looks like I did it also with the pandemic, but I actually did it like 7 years ago, and it's an interesting model because I don't have the typical architectural office. Now we're 6 people. We downsized to 6, but we downsized to 6 because some of my most important hires that I had, or architects working with me, at some point they said, well, I have this new project for a person that I want to work with. And I encouraged them. I said, perfect, leave the office, open up your office and go, because you're super talented. And they went and did one project thinking that they would have an office. And then they would come back saying like, I don't have more work, can you rehire me again? And I would say, no, stay with your office, and now I'll hire you as a partner, and I'll invite you to work with me. So that happened almost 7 years ago, and now with 6 people as my core team, I manage almost 180 people with 12 different teams. And it's beautiful because now I'm getting young offices approaching my office saying like, can I be another one of your extensions? And speaking also like, for instance, Bjarke that has 27 partners and there's 700. I'm like, well, I have almost not 27 partners, but I have 12. And they're in their offices and they're small offices, but I feel that this kind of breaking a little bit the bigger idea of the corporate architectural firm with I don't know how many I mean, everybody to each their own, but I think it's a different option. And it's worked interesting for me because then if I get a project and depending on the project, I know with which collaborator I want to do it with. And I have this flexibility that is always playful because it's again like jamming again with somebody else. No, it's like, okay, a new song, let's jam with this song and let's see what comes out. And that's the way the office has been now for a while, and I'm enjoying it a lot because it also gives me a lot of flexibility, no? That I felt that before, it happens here as well, no? You have a project and then very easy a client can come in and say, oh, we're going to stop the project for 6 months. And you have you have to pay all these people in your office and the guy just left for 6 months, I don't know where, and you want to cry because then you don't know what to do with all the people. So when there's small offices with less people, it's very easy because you can manage very well to navigate in, I call it a more resilient way of operating as an architect, no? But
they're also co-authors, so that's something nice that you do.
Well, yes, thanks for reminding me that. I got sick and tired of every time you would see like Legorreta and Partners or Foster and Partners, you would see a list of 600 architects. And you would never know who worked on the project because nobody got the credit. Everybody was just mixed in there. And there was kind of this thing of not showing who you collaborate with. So here it's like, it's their name next to my name. And I don't care. I feel my responsibility to help them be seen also because most of my clients are like, and aren't you worried that then I'm not going to work with you and work with them? I'm like, no, I hope you do. I'm introducing you to them so you really work with them in the future. And I mean, they end up coming back because they like the collaborations. But also, I also experienced that there's a lot of people that didn't want to work really hard. No? So you had a project manager on a building, and then he would resign. He would be like, no, this is too stressful. I quit. I'm leaving my job. And you would be in the middle of the building, and you would be like, what do you mean you quit? You cannot quit. And when you have collaborators that their name is equal to your name because they're partners in the project, they will never quit. So it's like having a project manager on steroids that he's even there harder than you are because he's giving the opportunity to work with you. And of course, the economy is very different. I know I can earn more money if I was working on my own, but I don't care because I feel that the more generous I am with these collaborations, more projects come and it becomes a nicer way to work and a different way, no? Instead of the typical architectural office that we all dreamt when we were students, no? I'm going to have a big office of I don't know how many people. then maintaining that big office, you might end up doing work that you don't want to do because you need to maintain the office, no? Which is a difficult break even. But anyway, come on, the students, no questions? Over there. I can hear you. Well, I mean, thanks for the question. I think that the most important thing is we have to be very critical. We have to be very critical, but not only as architects, as human beings. Like when you walk down a street, how does it make you feel? Safe, insecure, sad, depressing, and that has to do with the architecture that's being built, how buildings touch the sidewalks, no? Are they open, permeable, not permeable? Are they walls? Because, and I mean, most of the time, and you might scare clients when you have your office because if you ask them, like, what is your building going to do for the community? And most of the clients say, I don't care. I just want to do money. I want to do a residential project that makes me rich. I'm like, then you don't work with this guy. No, I mean, I sometimes joked with my students because I've been teaching for a long time. And I would say, I prefer going back to drumming back in the days when I was a musician than doing a project that I didn't like, because really, or not like is not the right word, that I didn't believe it was the right building. Because if you do a building that you don't believe is the right thing, next time another client is going to come and ask you to do a building like that one that you didn't think it was the right building because they're going to want a piece of that. And then you're going to be designing buildings that you didn't like for the rest of your life. So be careful the ones you choose, and why. It's harder to have a voice, but it's more important. It's more important to fight for the things that you believe are right. And you're fighting not something crazy. It's like we all want cities that are really livable and exciting to walk in and very generous in many different ways. But again, very rarely does it happen because everybody just comes in and takes as much as they can. And they don't care about the rest. It's like, no, my building is closed and from here to there, I don't care. It's like, it's everybody's responsibility. So it's a matter of just making sure that when you have your offices, or even you have a very good moment now. Before, when you were a student, you couldn't do anything until you finished architecture. And now, with all the social media and things going on, you have a very important place to have an opinion. So you can be the worst person having an opinion or the most interesting one, but have an opinion, because an opinion starts building character, and that character starts building architecture. And people will start looking for you because you have an opinion. You're not staying quiet like, okay, everything's going to be fine. And that way things are going to change, otherwise they won't. And now again, with you guys, everything that's being transformed in your country, which there's some beautiful things, some things that I know you also question. It's like, what will you guys do, with all these opportunities of architects, development companies, investment, now people wanting to come and live also in your country? Is it going to grow with how many people from abroad now? But always have an opinion and don't be shy. No? Better that they tell you, no, this cannot be done, and then you stick to it, than wishing you had said something. No? Well, it was not that difficult. I mean, I was signed with Virgin Records at 18. So in 18, I was like, oh, I'm going to make it in the world. I already signed with a major company, and we're going to record an album in New York. And I soon started getting very tired of the music industry. I mean, we had 4 albums, which was great. We opened up for Duran Duran back in the days, this 80s band. I mean, we had very successful things. MTV, we had videos in MTV. And the funny thing, I have to confess, is that I was on first semester of architecture, and we were signed by the record company. And I was not very excited about architecture. I mean, I wanted to be a graphic designer, but my older brother convinced me to do architecture, so I entered architecture, but I was not really in love with architecture. When I started touring with my band, I started falling in love with architecture, because I would travel and then arrive in Argentina or then in Brazil, and I would see airports, parks, squares, people, and I started understanding the power of architecture. And that really started making me very passionate about architecture. And these things that I would walk in a place and I would feel totally free, or I would feel excited about, and the ones that I felt oppressed, and I would say, well, this is why this is happening. So I started enjoying more architecture over time. And the reality with the music is that the lead singer, we were a rock band, and the lead singer started becoming more of a pop artist. So I didn't want to do pop music at all. And so after 4 albums, he was super intense he still sings, and he does music for soap operas and for other artists. And I said, well, I've had enough. I think 4 albums and a couple of years of music was interesting for me. And he's like, okay, now I can be full-time architect. And I had a client that was looking for me also to do, as an architect, I started doing refurbishments of an apartment for a friend of mine. I told him, don't worry, you don't need to pay me because I'm getting paid with music, but let me design what I want to design. So it bought a little bit of the freedom to design something that I thought was interesting. And from there, I had a client that started looking for me to design a house. And I was like, but I don't have an office. He's like, don't worry, but I want you to do a house. And then that started triggering everything. And then I said, no, I don't want to be distracted with music anymore. And I still love music, and I have a lot of musician friends. But that was a little bit of the transition, no? Thank you. Whichever. So I think it was more again about having an opinion. I mean, first saying that we didn't want to, we are a whole generation. You mentioned Tatiana Bilbao, Mauricio Rocha, Derek Delecamp. I mean, we're a generation that we very purposely didn't want to specialize in any particular field, because we knew that if you were a housing architect, then you would be tagged as a guy who does only houses, and nobody will invite you to do anything else because you're the expert on housing, no? Or if you did cultural buildings, then you would not do a house because you do cultural buildings. So again, having a very strong opinion on saying, I'm an architect, and I can design whatever building comes up, and I can work with all these amazing specialists, that if I'm doing a stadium, I can bring a stadium specialist or a philharmonica, and I can bring in 3 engineers that are going to help me do the sound engineer or the sound design for the space in general. And I don't want to specialize on sound for the rest of my life, no, but I want to specialize in the ability to bring groups together to really give the client the best result possible, no? So I think that opened up a little bit of the scenario for us when when we were doing projects or we were invited by the government to do a certain thing, because we didn't stay like, okay, only houses and we're going to do like these renovations. And even though we didn't have bigger work, we were always talking about being aware of how the urban conditions of a city are, what projects can do. And again, that's why I show even projects like a department store that, again, most architects would not even show those, no? They would hide them. I'm like, why? I mean, you're even trying to push a department store or a grocery store to even go further than they are thinking, because I think every project has an excuse to give something to their community. It doesn't matter what the program is. It can have the perfect opportunity to be generous to the outside of the project. And if every project had a little bit of generosity towards the city, imagine the cities that we would have. It would be totally different, no? Instead of thinking like from my side to the inside and I don't care for the outside. So when you're working on the things that you do, enter a lot of competitions as well, because competitions are very important for you guys to really, even though, I mean, we joke in Mexico because most of the competitions we already know who's going to win and all that's crazy, but just do it for the exercise. Alberto Calach, for instance, I love his work. He's also a Mexican architect. But Alberto, if they didn't have work or there wasn't any good commission, he would grab the people from his office, go for a walk, choose a site, come back, and he would say, I'll wait for you guys to present me a project by the end of the day. And he would make them like just exercise the thought of creating something in a certain condition, so your mind is always on shape. No? Because again, the good quality of an architect is how much you're exercising your thoughts and putting them in place. No? And of course, learning from architecture, which I think is important. Because when I was showing Cineteca or the National Film Institute or the Philharmonica, I also talk about designing spaces for things to happen that even you as an architect don't know how people are going to use them, which is great. Because we think we can control every little design, like, yeah, people are going to walk here and then they're in skateboards, no? Or they're going to do this in this way and they do it very different. But having that capacity to see the spaces that you design and learn from them when you finished and they're not used in the same way that you thought they were going to be used, that's also very beautiful. But yeah, I mean, there's people that might love just doing houses, but I always thought that I had studied architecture to be an architect in any part of the world, no? To come in and understand problems and see them in a way that how our societies are evolving. That I was saying, the speed of things and the capacity that we don't have anymore to go in depth to things that are meaningful, no? Because everything is so fast.
Thank you for your work. You're truly an inspiration. My favorite projects from you are for a Boca and also the Chocolate Museum, which wasn't part of the presentation, but it's something I really like.
Thanks.
Successful musician with Leksion. Also successful architect. What's your big move? What's next?
Well, I had to include there being a good dad to my daughter. No, I'm enjoying a lot working on myself. This thing that we were talking about at the beginning I was fortunate enough to be married to the mother of my daughter, which she's a psychologist, and I hated being psychoanalyzed for 11 years, but then now I'm very appreciative of it because I think that it made me a better person. But I'm very curious on the world in general. I mean, there's architects. Again, everybody has their own way of seeing things, but I love seeing the world and seeing like the craziness, and that's why I was this term casinofied, which I hate casinos with all my guts, no? And but it's a term, and everything is becoming a soap opera, and everything is just so crazy ridiculous that it's very. I mean, we can get very depressed on everything that's going on, or you can analyze everything and try to see it with calm and try to understand that we're seeing crazier times than ever before, no? But as architects, we need to respond to society. So what society? The ones that will have microchips, or we'll be designing spaces for robots now? Or what, I mean, all these things that are changing so rapidly, we cannot keep thinking that it's going to be the same. So what's next is, I mean, having a deeper conversations about humanity in general, and how we can, again, just coming back to, we forget our humanity, and that's really sad to me, because again, I have these amazing clients that come to the office like, oh, we're going to do this beautiful community in 20 years and blah, 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 and he was a real asshole to the police guy at the entrance of the building, and he didn't even say hi to him. And I'm like, how am I going to believe this guy that he thinks he's going to do something nice or good for people and humanity if he's not even a good person? No? So working on anything that you work on yourself will have a rippling effect on your life in everything that you do, no matter what. And I know your generation is more easier with having a psychologist and people. For us, you went to the shrink if you were crazy or mad, no? But newer generations are more open to like, oh, you have life coaches and you have this and that, or you have a therapist online, whatever. But I think it's great. I think you guys are going to be much more healthier mental-wise than we were. I hope. We're trusting your generation. but thank you. Gracias. Last one? Okay. Over. Go ahead.
In terms of standards or certifications for the buildings in general, not just the ones you design, but I mean in Mexico in general, and following this, how much of a stakeholder are you in your projects? I mean, do you have a say? Because what's the main challenge, I guess, in Albania in general is that, okay, we design these buildings with the standards and this trying to be as green as we want, but when it comes to the implementation phase, they struggle with the money-oriented, which I cannot blame, but still. It's not just with you personally, but the situation in general, even.
Yeah, I mean, in Mexico, I mean, in terms of me having a stake in my projects, I don't. I mean, there's sometimes clients that come in and ask you if you want to participate on the project at some point. I mean, I don't know if you're talking about how invested you are I mean, I'm invested as a designer, but not, I mean, sometimes I wish I would have asked maybe for part of apartments instead of the honorarium, but the times that I've tried, I've always ended up regretting it because either the project didn't happen or something crazy happened at the end, no? And in terms of, and I know this was a little bit your question about the certification of projects or the standards, no? I hate all these stamps and LEED certifications and all that stuff because I personally, it's our responsibility to do it. It's not because there's a stamp, no? I mean, I think that now when I was talking about generosity, I've been in these discussions with government saying like there should be a generosity clause for you to get a license. So the same way that you need to have a structural engineer help you structure a building so it could pass regulations, what is the project doing to the city? And if it doesn't do anything, there should be a law on generosity. And the generosity is that, I mean, there was a time, I think in New York, that you had to spend 1% of the budget on an American building on art, an external art for the city. And that happened for a while and then it disappeared. It's like, that's crazy because that's also a good incentive that you always have to put a piece of art or something to enhance the way people kind of face a building. But in Mexico, we're full of these LEED buildings that are supposed to be certified, and they're 4 facades of glass. And then they're spending all this amount of money on air conditioning and technology to make it a LEED certification. It's like, no. And this is more on the future, but I hope I get to see this alive. Where we stop forgetting that underneath this building, there is soil and there's life underneath the building. And we sometimes think that because we build something, everything is dead. But there's still soil, and there's still mycelium, and there's still connections passing underneath the buildings, and we never have an understanding of what's underneath. So I expect the same way that now we have these watches and things that measure my heartbeat and my oxygen, that we can have something that says, oh, it's missing humidity underneath. With all the water treatment, now let's have the water come down to the soil underneath the building, and let's maintain it humid-wise, so it does good for the rest of the environment, no? And all these types of things where we understand our relationship to the earth with buildings and not independent from them, no? So those are the things that I hope they don't become certifications, but I hope it becomes a way of understanding how to do architecture and not just going like blindfolded and doing things, no? Because we're still connected to the earth. And this was something that when my first doubt of being an architect is like, what? We're going to open a hole on a planet that's alive and put a foundation of concrete on the, so what if it's like having things stuck in your body, no? And then it's like, okay, so be very conscious of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, no? Because we live in a planet that's alive. Yeah, okay, now we can go. Thank you very much, everybody. And, I'm honored to be here, and I guess I'll be seeing you a little bit more, and I'm excited about it for sure, so thank you.